Right. So, good morning, everyone. A very, very warm welcome to our first ever webinar that we're hosting for clients and, contacts as well. I'd like to firstly begin by sort of thanking you and making sure that you can hear us with technology. So, if in the group box, if you can put down if you can hear me, or even better still, where you're based and what's the weather like outside. It'll be good to know, uh, and I'll get some feedback as to if you can hear me or not. So there's a group there's a chat button at the bottom. So if you can see my screen, you can hear me. Please, great, thank you, Barry. Perfect. That's very good. So very, very warm welcome. I've got Bharat and myself here on the webinar, although we're in different parts of the uh, of town. Um, we'll want to take you through the various bits and pieces around maximizing and preserving business cash. But I'd like to first check that everyone's keeping well and everyone's obviously, we're living in unprecedented times, but everyone's sort of well and safe, because fundamentally that's the key bit in everything that we do. Um, the meeting's being recorded. We will share the recording with you in once the meeting's over. I've got a few members of the team here that are willing and will be able to take questions whilst we're conducting the webinar. So there'll be an opportunity for you to ask. Again, just ask the questions in the group message, and we'll try and answer that in today's webinar. If for whatever reason we run out of time or we can't provide you with the answer then and there, we will be taking these out away, and we will reply to you later this afternoon or over the course of the weekend. Right, so the agenda for today is pretty much three things. One, it's assessing your business situation, what sensible decisions and actions you can take now to maximize your cash flow. And then it's a final bit about reviewing the financial help available from the government. At this point, um, I want to sort of state that we've tried our very best to give you the right advice, um, but this stuff is changing very quickly, and if you therefore need to seek proper professional advice before you act on anything given in this webinar today. If you're not our client, again, by all means get in touch, but we may not be able to advise you on your business specifically, but we will try our very best. Right. So if we start off with assessing the current business situation, um, as I said, we're living in unprecedented times. Things are very rapid, very changing every day. We're starting to get back to normality in terms of, at least, they've eased the lockdown to an extent. Um, our team as Priceman have been fully functioning and working remotely. We hope that you've continued to see the level of service that we aimed and strive to deliver. However, I know in instances that there's been some delays in responding, and that's because of the sheer volume of queries that we are getting throughout the course of this current situation. Um, so if we talk about assessing the business situation as it stands, the the key words that strike me are really garbage in and garbage out. What I'm trying to say here is, actually, before you can really assess what the true impact is in terms of actual physical numbers and bottom line pockets, you need to know where you stand as a starting point. So the key to that is having your books and financial records up to date. I mean, there's no point trying to work out a plan of action when it comes to cash flow specifically, if you don't know what you are owed, you don't know what you owe, and you don't know what costs are essential to your business. Uh, you know, we've got number of clients that use desktop packages to do their accounting, and the information is quickly out of date. And by the time we see it, it's even more so out of date. Even 1 week delay could make a massive difference in your work, in the projections. So again, it's important to have uh, your accounts and your financial records up to date. Sensible decisions to take now, and how to maximize the cash flow. I think the, the first point here is to find the easiest way of getting cash in. What debts can be paid to you with or without a payment plan. I mean, you know, you might be owed £100,000 from a customer. Can you arrange a payment plan for a start, and say, or do you give them a discount and say, look, if you pay me up front, I'm going to knock out, for argument's sake, 10%. Again, the point is knowing what debts you have, and therefore sort of then breaking that down into what you can be paid, what you can't be paid immediately, and therefore agreeing a payment plan. Uh, Reduce your payment terms or ask for some payment up front. That's exactly the point. If, again, give them options of how to pay. Can they pay by credit card? Uh, who have you not invoiced, but you need to get those invoices out the door. Uh, Look at the VAT deferment help. As you know, that one of the things the government has mentioned is the deferment of VAT for quarters ended February, March, and April. Take advantage of that. There's, making sure you've invoiced, and therefore the VAT can then be deferred off the back of that. What government grants or loans can you access? Again, you may need to discuss this with us, with your bank manager, with the landlords, in terms of the grants that you're entitled to. So again, I had a question earlier on, which I'll get to, about grants and accessing those. So again, look at those areas. Uh, Also, if you need a bank loan, and I'm not talking about the bounce back loans, but if you need a larger bank loans, one of the questions that the bank will ask is to have your books and management accounts done, and also projections. And therefore goes back to the key point of having your financial affairs up to date. Which of your customers are cash rich and therefore may be able to pay in advance for a discount? So again, we've had clients say to us, can I get a discount if I pay my annual fees up front? Take that opportunity to do that. That's the sort of the idea about money coming in, or the section around getting money to come into your bank account. What about money leaving your bank account? Scrutinizing your cost base and dividing them into 3 or 4 categories. What are the essential spend? We need to do this, otherwise we don't have a business, or we can't reduce this cost. So website cost is an example. I know a lot of businesses have turned around and said, look, should I cut my website cost, or should I cut out my marketing spend? Actually, we're turning around and saying, look, now is the time to market your business, because off the back of that, you will be able to lead generate and therefore win more business. What spending could we cut without hurting the business, but we would still have the business? So, for example, wages. Have we looked at furloughing all the employees by all I mean, the relevant employees, have they been furloughed? You know, have we talked to the staff members to take a pay cut or take a reduction of hours if you can't furlough them? You know, what about spending we could cut if we do things differently? For example, switching to a cheaper supplier, automating business processes, furloughing the in-house bookkeeper and letting us do the bookkeeping ourselves. Again, things to consider. Have you looked at your energy suppliers? Are there better deals out there? Use this opportunity, this time, if you've got the time, to look at your spending. You know, uh, are we, as accountants, are you paying us for services you don't need? Are we doing your management accounts? And actually, you don't need management accounts at the moment. And I'd like to think we've approached all our clients where we've been engaged to provide management accounts, but actually there's no need for that right now. Um, so again, have those conversations. What spending could we cut temporarily to postpone or postpone with some negotiations? So which suppliers would be able to give a payment holiday? Uh, have you spoken to your landlord about, a payment holiday or a reduction in rent for that matter? Uh, VAT, PAYE, and corporation tax payments that are becoming due. Have you spoken to have you spoken to HMRC? What about your pension payments or your pension contributions? Not your staff's necessarily, but your own personal pension if you're doing them. Should we put a freeze on that for the moment? We've had dialogues with a couple of clients where we've done exactly that and said, look, it might be sensible to hold on and stop the regular contributions for the moment. Again, is there non-essential spend? So, if we cut this out completely, the business will carry on as normal. So software subscriptions and licenses that are not being used. Uh, Again, have you got any that are not being used, or any other costs that actually you're paying for but don't really need to? And then and there's some people say that the big overheads are normally wages and rent. So again, have you looked at ways of reducing your big overheads, wages and rent, especially, have you accessed the job retention scheme for non-essential staff or staff struggling to work because they're juggling with childcare? Uh, Again, we've had a couple of situations ourselves as an organization where the staff members have said, look, I'm really struggling with looking after my child because they're studying from well, they're homeschooling effectively, and rather than, we've been fortunate, we've said, look, let's rework your office hours, but that's an option. Or do you put them on the job retention scheme and say, fine, you know um, that's okay, but we'll have to cut your wages down to 80%. uh, have you asked for a payment holiday from your landlord? Or where you're paying on a quarterly basis, have you said, can I pay on a monthly basis? Again, I briefly touched on asking clients to move on to part-time, sorry, asking staff to move on to part-time hours, 4 days a week. Have the conversations, but the key is effectively scrutinizing your expenses on a monthly basis and looking at how to reduce those. One of the things that has come out of this pandemic has been the opportunity to become creative. And, we've had, I'll come to a couple of examples in a second, but can we pivot our business model so that you find it, you can find your equivalent of the toilet roll in this pandemic. I mean, the toilet roll manufacturers had a bowl, but can you do something like that? Can you find that? With restaurants and retailers offering a home delivery service or a takeaway service. That's something you may never have thought about in the past because of the headaches that came with it. But signing up to Deliveroo or Uber Eats, something like that, have you thought of that? Can you boost your firm's demands by marketing slightly differently? Um, and I want to sort of give you two or three examples here. We've got a yoga instructor that is a client and that had been running um, classes on a regular basis, and fairly profitable classes. But obviously, with the current situation and the lockdown, she's not been able to carry out these classes at her normal place of work, so to speak. So what's happened instead is she's gone on, signed up to Zoom, and done Zoom classes, and most of her regular clients have been happy to do so. So again, she's receiving the continual stream of income, yet her overheads have dropped. We've had a similar situation with a restaurant where they provide a specialist uh, service, and it's a tea room. They've looked at, when the pandemic came out, Mother's Day was round the corner, and that was one of the busiest day in the calendar. They'd taken advance bookings, but rather than cancel that, what they've turned around and done is they said, we will deliver to your house the tea, that experience. So they've sort of done picnic baskets effectively and gone and dropped those off. So again, think about ways of getting creative. Um, and again, I'll come back to how we can help with that. But it's all about opening up your mind. Um, Again, we've had a similar situation with an estate agent, where what they've done is they've been renting out property, a couple of offices in central London, and what they've done is they've returned one of the properties. The other one remains because they'll need it once the lockdown's lifted, but they've got the staff to work remotely, and they're making calls and collecting rents, etc., on that basis. So again, a bit like us, Bharat and I have been thinking about the actual need for a physical premises. We still need one, and we'll still be here, but do we need such a large office if a lot of the team members can work from home? I'm going to now take you through to the sort of the biggest part of this presentation, which is a review of the financial help that's available. Um, and I know there's a lot of questions that will come out of this, but if I can just quickly summarize why the government's been giving out these handouts, uh, because as much as there are always going to be some losers in terms of the benefits, I personally feel, and this is my own personal opinion, that uh, the Chancellor Rishi and his team have done a significant amount of work, and the help that has been provided has been, in my opinion, unbelievable. Um, so the reason why they're giving this out, because the projections is, if the likelihood that the economy will suffer, we all know, but they've been projecting that it will contract by about 20% this year. And to put that into perspective, 1% is a recession, 20% is a Great Depression. So if they didn't do anything, they would be in some serious problems. Uh, and we are seeing that this temporary and severe contraction, it's because of this lockdown. It is not the same as the credit crunch, but it is something significantly larger than that. The government wants us to bounce back quickly, and we will. It's human nature. I almost want to say it's British nature, but it's human nature to bounce back, to stand up and bounce back. But it wouldn't happen if a lot of businesses have gone bust, and therefore making a lot of the workforce redundant. So the help's gone around this, and these handouts are there to help businesses carry on trading after the worst is over. Um, and it's to help people put food on the table. They're not there to help currently healthy and trading businesses get help. Uh, I think for me, that's a little bit of a stab in the back, but I think there's been a lot of businesses that haven't planned well, and no one knew this would come, but planning well and following the fundamentals of business, it's to make money, and therefore you should be saving some as well. So, you know, yes, this help is there for the businesses that are struggling, uh, and it's predominantly there for that. But of course, if you're subject to those conditions, you will be able to get that help. If I target the self-employment support scheme, which went live last Wednesday, it was available to all self-employed individuals, uh, and not limited companies or an individual where they received a salary and dividends. This is pure self-employed individuals who submitted a 2018-19 tax return by the 23rd of April, and had trading profits under 50,000, either in 2018-19 or an average of 50,000 for the last 3 tax years. And these profits make up more than 50% of your total income. And that's the key bit. If your trading profits made up, say it was 10,000, and your rental income from various properties you owned was 20,000, you wouldn't qualify for this. It's got to have been, 50% of the total income should have come from trading. You should have traded in 1920 and you intend to carry on trading. And what was the benefit? The benefit was you could work and receive the grant from the government. And it was up to £2,500 per month, but it was 80% of your average monthly profit. And they've done that as a straight line, where they've taken your last year's earnings, divided it by 12, and multiplied that by 80%. We have heard from some members of our clients where they have received the money in the bank already, so that money is coming through. And again, I want to sort of congratulate the HMRC, because they had originally said that this money would be available in June, and actually they've delivered in advance. The slide deck's slightly old, but they said they would contact you if you're eligible, and you'd receive a lump sum payment for the 3 months or more if it was to be extended. But we're starting to see that money has been coming in. What are the other supports that's available for self-employed? There is the increased amounts of universal credits. If you haven't already applied for universal credits, have a look at the website, the HMRC website, to see if you're eligible. There is the business interruption loan scheme. So it's now famously called the C-bills or the bounce back loans. I know at the time in March, the banks were taking quite a while to authorize these loans. The bounce back scheme, which was announced, which is up to £50,000, that money has been, coming into clients' bank accounts within a space of 2 or 3 days. But we're also seeing some of the larger loans now being turned around within 3 or 4 days with an approval, and then a week later the money's in the accounts. So again, just watch out on that. There are grants for some businesses which pay no business rates, and this is the £10,000 as long as you had a premises. and who are registered with your local council for that. Uh, there is the deferral of the self-assessment income tax payments due in July 2020 to January 2021. Again, just a quick note on that. January, and Bharat and I will touch on this at a later, towards the end of the event. We've also got the final bit of help, which is the deferral of the VAT payments for periods of February, March, and April. That's been deferred through to March 2021. Of course, with the VAT and the self-assessment, there are deferrals, so you can still pay it if you want to. Again, speak to us about that, because there's differing views around that as well. The other help that's available is the job retention scheme. Again, for other businesses, the deferral of VAT and tax payments. The statutory sick pay relief package. So this is for employees that went on sick leave. The repayment portal has now opened yesterday. So those that claim statutory sick pay for their employees, we can make that claim to receive the money that you paid out. 12 months business rates holidays for all in the retail, hospitality and leisure businesses in England and Wales. Small business grant funding of 10,000 for businesses who get small business rate relief. And grant funding of £25,000 for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses with rateable value of between £15,000 and £51,000. The grant for £10,000 and £25,000, with most of our clients have received it. If you haven't received it and if you feel you're eligible, get in touch with us or look at your local council. There's an application form that needs to be filled, which is basically your rates account number, your rateable value, your property address, and your bank details. And that's fairly straightforward. And then it's the CBILS loan and the time to pay, which we've talked about. The benefits of the furlough scheme, and I just want to sort of take some time to sort of try and understand, or to try and sort of give you the reason why the scheme has been brought out. Obviously, a lot of businesses suffered with businesses sort of not operating, and in normal circumstances, you would have made your employees redundant. That meant unemployment would have gone up, and it would have left the UK in a very, very dangerous position from a economy point of view. So what the Chancellor and the government have instead said is you can keep them on, but furlough them. So basically make them temporarily redundant. They will pay you 80% of the wages, as long as you pay them 80% onward, up to £2,500. And on the basis that they do not work for you, they've taken that temporary redundancy, you would be receiving that 80%. Now the scheme has been extended to October, I believe. However, the details of that are not out yet, and they're expected to be out end of May. So watch out, we will be sending an updated email. I will emphasize again that from what I heard of the Chancellor, he has mentioned that the businesses will be asked to contribute towards this. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but that's what's been announced at the moment. Again, the money is likely to be paid in June as a grant. However, we've obviously seen that money coming through a bit earlier than that. The wages paid to the employees are still taxable. They're still to keep their employment rights, so you will still be entitled to pay them holiday pay whilst they're working. or whilst they're on temporary redundancy. So watch out on that, because you don't want to be hit with a holiday bill once we come out of this. So there's provisions in the legislation that let you, or that ask you to force them to take holiday pay, or take their holidays during this period, which means you have to top up 20% for that period, because your holiday will be at 100%. Again, on that, speak to us, reach out to Mita, myself, or Bharat, and we'll try and help you. Again, there's a legal aspect, or there's an employment law aspect on this, but we'll give you whatever help we can. Limited company directors can furlough themselves as well. So again, we've all heard, and claims have been made for various limited company directors. The business interruption loan scheme. So if I talk about the CBILS, it was 12 months interest free, as the government will pay the interest for you. The scheme's open. Banks are not allowed to ask for personal guarantees for loans up to £250,000. However, the banks are still insisting on what they call your personal assets, income and liabilities statement. And this is for the larger loans, the loans greater than 50,000. To get the loans, they are asking for management accounts, cash flow forecast, last year's accounts, and whether your business was healthy before COVID-19. On that point, we have, as a firm, we've now partnered with one of the largest platforms called Capitalize. We're able to apply for these loans on your behalf. So reach out to us if you're looking at these loans, and we will sort of write to you individually about the cost associated with that, and whether there is really a opportunity to obtain this loan. And that's not just for this business interruption, but there could be things like invoice financing, asset purchase, asset acquisition. We're now able to provide this to you in-house without the need to go to your bank manager for a loan. So reach out to us on that, and we will sort of look at it on a case-by-case basis. On the bounce back loans, which I don't have a slide for, so my apologies for that. The scheme is live. It is fairly straightforward. It is up to 50,000, so it's 25% of your turnover for last year. If you haven't been trading for a year, then it's 50%. Sorry, it's 25% of your projected turnover, up to £50,000. So that's a turnover of, if you've got turnover of more than £200,000, you're entitled to £50,000. It's interest free for a year. After a year, the interest is at 2.5%, fixed at 2.5%, and the period of the loan is 5 years. So actually it's 6 years, but the first year is interest free, so it's 5 years from end of year one. At 2.5%, I think it's a very attractive loan. There is no, from what we understand, there's no early repayment charges. So you could take the loan at the end of year one, decide if you don't need it, return it back, and there should be no cost to you. Reach out to your own bank or your bank manager, and if you're not sure, feel free to ask us, and we will be more than happy to guide you through the process. Again, the loans are hitting the bank's accounts within a space of a few days. So it's something very worth looking at. But again, with loans, I must say it wouldn't be prudent of me to say take a loan out when you know you can't afford to pay it. Yes, they're 100% backed by the government, but I'm sure there'll be repercussions somewhere along the lines if you're not able to pay it, whether it's in the form of hitting your credit rating and your future ability to borrow. Just got to be careful with that. Please, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask them. Kavi is there to answer them, or at least collect them. I want to sort of end with how we can help your business before I take the questions. We can help your businesses in many ways. We've talked about, uh, uh, I'm going to put them all on the slide anyway, just so that you can see what there is. So we can take on your payroll and bookkeeping and financial tasks for the business if you want to furlough your bookkeeper. Um, we can help you putting your business onto the cloud so that you get real-time live information. Um, and again, it automates the process. Uh, I know there's a few members of our client community here that are using this, and I'd like I'd like to hear some feedback on how you found that, whether that process has helped. Uh, I myself as a business owner am using the cloud-based bookkeeping, and every morning I come in, spend 5 minutes first thing in the morning to bring my books up to date, and they're up to date every single day. So my position is very clear every single morning. And likewise, Bharat's doing the same. We can help you get a payment facility set up so your customers can pay you by credit card. So if you need a credit card machine, we can help with that. Uh, of course, we can help you get your books up to date so you know exactly what you need to do financially. We can help you create the cash flow forecast so you know when you need to worry. We can help you put together management accounts and future projections so you can access your loans. And we can help you access those loans, both CBILS and normal loans. The ones we can't help you access is the bounce back loans because you need to apply directly to your bank. And the application process for that's very straightforward. So this is a 50,000 up to 50,000 pound loan. It's a very straightforward application process, and it's almost self-satisfying. So they don't ask for anything in particular on that. And perhaps the most important is being that sounding board for you. If you want to bounce off any ideas, any questions around the business, we're happy to be there for you. We hope we hope we've been there for you so far, but we hope we're continuing to be there for you as well. So any ideas you want to bounce off, please reach out to myself, Bharat, or a member of the team, and we'll be happy to talk to you on that. There is one thing that's not on the slide, but I want to talk about very, very seriously. It's the help that the government's given, in particular the deferment of the July payment self-assessment or the VAT deferment. That's all being pushed back to the year ended or to January or March 2021. Now, what that means is, and I'm very passionate about this, is you're pushing your problems back to January and or March. We don't know how the business will be or how quickly we'll be back to a normal by that time, whether your business will be operating at 60%, 80%, 100, or even 150%. And will you therefore have your cash flow? It is therefore, in my opinion, very important to get your tax return done early so that you know exactly what liabilities are coming. Remember, the situation with COVID started in March, towards the back end of March, and where your year end has been 31st of March or 5th of April, you've had a year's worth of trading anyway, or if it's not a year, at least, 50 or 48 weeks worth of solid trading on the old system. So that really won't impact your tax liabilities vastly if things were as normal. So again, very important to know what your liabilities are so that you are not in that position where you're struggling to make that January or March payments. Reach out we can help you with your cash flow and planning that. And it's all about knowing when to worry. So it's this bit here. Uh, but in order for us to get there, we need to get your books up to date. So reach out to us. Again, we're there to help you bounce that idea off. Um, COVID-19 and what I don't know if you have seen this little snapshot we did early in beginning of April, but I've left it there on screen so that we've tried to make summarize it or put it in a little bit less writing than you would to get in the normal sort of legislation form. So feel free to have a look. I'll leave this on slide and I'll open the floor to any questions that you may have. But before I do that, I'll just go to Bharat. Bharat, do you have anything to add to what I've spoken so far?
Uh, yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. And I think that was an excellent talk by Shalin. Thank you. Just one point on furlough. The furlough scheme has been extended to July in its present form. And from August, September, October, the 3 months, the government have said that it's going to be 80%, but you may have to contribute some of it. And the contribution could be maybe 20%. So you still have to pay the employees 80%, but then government will only be funding you 60%. Okay, so that's something, that 20% or whatever has not been brought up by the government and should be out by the end of the month. Something else that's very interesting in that period is this, that from August onwards, you'll be able to put employees who are furloughed on part-time. At the moment, you're not allowed, right? But in future, in August, so instead of, so you can furlough somebody, get their 80%, but they would be working part-time. Again, the details of that should be coming out next week. So these 2 points are very important to you restarting your business and how you cope with the expenses. Okay, thanks.
And just thank you, Bharat, for that. And just to add to that, if you are thinking of making a member of the staff redundant come July, once the furlough scheme is over, because you can't afford to pay them the 20%, or simply there's not enough work, watch out on the redundancy period uh, requirements, because you'll be in a situation where um, you have to give them the notice, etc. And you don't want to be in that position in August where you're giving them their 1 month's notice to make them redundant, right? And there's also what they call a 45-day period for consultancy. So again, reach out to us or reach out to your HR team to give you some more guidance on that. I can see there's a few questions on that. Just before I take those questions, we've got a question that came through by email in terms of how easy, and it was more around the cloud function and what we can offer. It was how easy is it to get onto the cloud from desktop, or how easy is it for me to do the bookkeeping on a new software as opposed to doing it the way I was. And my answer to that, it's fairly straightforward to get you onto the cloud. Reach out to us, we will help you get onto the cloud. There is obviously cost associated with the software, but it's about 20 or 24 pounds a month to get you that subscription. And we can talk about moving you onto the cloud fairly easy. I'm just trying to see through if, yes, we had a member of one of our client base who's on the webinar, and I won't unmute them to put them on the spot, but we've managed to convert them onto the cloud, and actually they have taken back the function of well, they've taken in-house the finance function. So we've actually given them the control back and say, look, if you're, now that you're comfortable, please do your own bookkeeping. We're happy to still support you, but actually, if you're more than comfortable, we're happy to do that for you. Uh, so hopefully that answers that question. Um, I've got a question here from Mr. Khan. How will the end of year reconciliation by the NHS BSA affect the delayed July tax bill? Um, the July 2020 tax bill is an estimate based on your last year's tax return. So the answer to that, the end of year reconciliation by the NHS, from what I understand, will not affect your July tax bill. Your July tax bill will remain as it is, but remember, you don't have to pay it if you don't want to. Again, a very specific questions around dentist. Bharat or myself are happy to talk to you after the webinar on that. I have a question about understanding the self-employment scheme. So the self-employment scheme is available to anyone that earned that completed a tax return with a self-employment page or a partnership page in 2018-19, and their earning from that self-employment was less than £50,000. If it was less than £50,000, the next hurdle to jump is whether you had whether that together with your total income, the self-employment income was less than 50% of your total income. So if you had £20,000 as self-employed income, £10,000 as property income, the total income is 30, 20 over 30 is 2/3, you would be eligible. You would then work out the calculation at 80% of the 20,000, which is 16,000, and divide that by 12 and multiply that by 3. That equates to £4,000 for the 3 months. I hope that answers your question. Mr. Borani had a question around the special case relating to a startup of a limited company uh, where you've been supporting yourself using your savings. Is there any way of receiving help? Um, my direct answer, unfortunately not. You fall into one of the categories where you don't qualify for any of the grants that are on the screen. However, you may be eligible for the bounce back loan. Off the top of my head, the amount is 25% of your turnover, and it could be your projected turnover as well. So again, Mr. Borani, if you want to sort of drop me an email, or let's organize a quick call to discuss that. Um, what cloud system is it? So we like Xero. We are big fans of Xero. I personally am I'm a big fan of Xero, but Xero is not the only product that's out there. If you came to us and asked us what is your preferred, we would say Xero. But there are some flaws, or not flaws, but there are some pitfalls or some limitations of Xero, which other providers may cover. So on a case-by-case basis, we can have a look. However, in about 99.9%, Xero has been sufficient. Thank you, Mr. Shah. I look forward to receiving your call, and I hope everyone in India is safe and well there. Regarding the dentist, I'm getting an NHS contract. Can I claim for my private income? It's a question that's been asked to me about 3 or 4 times last week by 3 or 4 different clients. And my answer to that has been, and this is off the record, the government guidelines when you go and try and apply for this self-employment grant is, have you adversely been affected? To me, the immediate answer is yes, because I'm not only getting 80% of my NHS money, or I'm not getting my private income. So my answer to that is yes, I am adversely affected. So it doesn't give me an answer to quantify whether I'm adversely affected by 10% or 100%. I'm just adversely affected. So on that basis, I would apply for the grant. Um,
Charlene, if I can just come in, I
yeah,
think one thing to bear in mind here is this £50,000 income level. So if your earnings are over £50,000 a year, in that case, you cannot claim it, despite the fact that you tick all the other boxes. So yes, like Charlene said, you are allowed to be working during this period because you've been partly affected by the uh, COVID-19. So you can claim it, but provided you are under £50,000. Okay.
and there is a very quick way to check on the government website where you can just log in, put in your unique tax reference and your national insurance number, and it will tell you whether you're eligible or not. But I think the question was, can I claim for NHS, or if I'm getting still paid by the NHS contract, can I claim still under the? Uh, I don't see why not, because you've been adversely affected by
Mm.
on the private side. Um, before I wrap up, if there's any more questions, feel free to sort of push them through. Uh, before I say the final thank you, I've got a few tips. There's 6 tips which I'll recap on how to preserve your cash flow. Tip number 1: know when you are going to run out of cash. It's really easy to get caught up, uh, but you know it's important to find out when you're going to run out of cash. We had an insolvency practitioner that we spoke to recently, and he said only 5% of the calls that they are receiving at the moment are from businesses that are genuinely insolvent. So if you haven't really done so, and you haven't done this in a while, it's now time to look at your cash flow. Um, Tip number 2: make sure your books are up to date. I know as accountants, we are always telling you to keep your books up to date, but it's now more important than ever to know your true picture. If you don't know what you are owed, what is owed to you, you can't take those decisions. And for those of you relying on spreadsheets or desktop software, now is the time for you to go onto the cloud. Um, Again, we as a firm can't easily advise you if you're looking at out-of-date figures. So it's very important to have sort of up-to-date figures. And the benefits of cloud is exactly that. Um, Look to take advantage of all the government financial help that's available. Tip number 3. Tip number 4: analyze your business cost and push back to the bare essentials. Uh, Examine your overheads. What exactly can you eliminate or cut back on? What do you still need to be able to trade? What you don't need? Do you have tip number 5? Do you have an opportunity to reduce your wage bill? Wages are often businesses' biggest costs. Uh, which of your employees can you furlough, make redundant in order to save the cost? If you believe you won't be able to employ your whole team again, you may be better off in making them redundant now. Um, and then prioritize the quickest way to generate cash. Chase the late payers, change your payment terms to get paid quicker, give long-term customers the opportunity to pay in advance for the work, potentially with a discount. Bill your customers, client with any outstanding work which can be invoiced. Focus your sales team on warm leads rather than cold leads, and consider what your business equivalent of a toilet roll is. What can you change about the products and services you deliver, or how you deliver, to make them in demand at the moment? Um, uh, One more question, time for a last one. I started my business last year. I'm not drawing a salary. Can I claim payment? Unfortunately, you can't claim a furlough payment because you were not on the payroll in March 2019 or on the 19th of March. Mr. Nathwani, I have seen your email. This morning, I haven't got round to replying because I was sort of doing the final preparations for this. But your easiest bet at the moment would be to apply for the business interruption loans, and whether you go for the bounce back loan or the larger loan is a separate question. But again, it's key at looking at the cash flow. That's it. Finally, I want to thank you all for taking time out. I hope you found the session useful. I will be running a second session later on in the next couple of weeks. But this one will be based more on leadership and how to return back to work and what you need to do. Again, we are here to continue to guide you through this difficult situation. We may not have all the answers, or we may not have answers that you like, but it's good to have that sounding board, and it's better to know what the truth now rather than get false hopes. And again, the recording will be sent out. Any further questions, feel free to reach out to Bharat or myself or any member of the team. And look forward to hearing from you, and keep safe and stay alert, as they say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry, just one word. Okay, are you? Yeah.
I stopped the share. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, if I can just carry on. Right. I'm also planning a seminar on slightly different thing, which is estate planning and probate, which is something else that we do. We have had 2 seminars which have been extremely successful and useful to a lot of people, but now we cannot meet, and so I think this is something that will take to the Zoom, and so there should be a Zoom seminar coming up shortly, so just watch out for that. Okay, thank you very much all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll now stop the recording, and the meeting will end. Thank you very much.